Right, thank you, Muni. Without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce to you our first speaker. He possesses vast experience in mobility solutions and is currently putting electric vehicles and EV technology to work. He plays a key role in policy formulation for R&D policy and pilot projects for FAME scheme of the Government of India. And he also leads Mahindra Electric's CSR activities. Please welcome on stage with a huge round of applause the strategy and business planning head for Mahindra Electric, Mr. Karthik Gopal. Mr. Avneesh Agrawal to come on stage and talk about his product and the solution, please.
So I actually have 10 minutes to tell my story, so I'm going to go quickly through the presentation. Who are we? We are a global artificial intelligence company that is focused on commercial vehicle and driver safety. We were founded in September of 2015, and we have technology centers in Bangalore and San Diego. So the product that we have is for advanced driver assistance and a monitoring system. This is the device. It has 4 high-definition cameras. It has a NVIDIA TX1 processor. I'll explain that a little bit later, what it's doing. It's fully connected. It has a GPS and LTE connectivity. It has a 9-axis accelerometers, gyrometers, and it also can read and write to the CAN bus. It's mounted on the windshield right behind the rearview mirror. And it's essentially seeing everything that the driver is seeing. It's experiencing everything that the driver is experiencing. And what it does is it takes all of those visual feeds and all of those feeds from the accelerometers, gyrometers, and GPS and runs our deep learning algorithms on the NVIDIA TX1 processor and makes an assessment of how the driver is driving. So what it does is it tracks whether the driver is stopping at stoplights, traffic lights. It looks at what distance the driver is maintaining to the vehicles in front. It looks at how safe the driver is driving with respect to two-wheelers and pedestrians around it. And essentially, whenever the system detects an unsafe driving maneuver, it does 2 things. One is it alerts the driver. By the way, the other thing it's also doing, it's also watching the driver. So it's also doing full drowsiness detection, distracted driving. So when it sees the driver is distracted based on the driver's own behavior or the driving habits of the driver, it alerts the driver. And it also captures the video around that event and uploads to our cloud for sort of post-event analysis that can be used to coach the driver, but more importantly can be used to assess the driving risk of the driver. And essentially what we're doing is quantifying driving risk. So just as you have sort of a credit score, a FICO credit score, we assign a driving score to the driver that can be used by the insurance companies. So the value proposition is fourfold. One is, since we essentially have the same technology as an autonomous driving technology, and I'll show you some videos, we actually have a very, very accurate and comprehensive assessment of risk that can be used by insurance companies to set premiums and actually even for targeted customer acquisition. There's a very strong proponent of risk reduction because now the driver knows is every single of the driver's maneuver, unsafe maneuver, is being monitored, and a driving score is being assigned to it. And a fleet, if you have a commercial fleet, you're a fleet manager, you can actually create an incentive structure for the driver to drive safely. And there's evidence that actually works very well. You know, just as taxi aggregators like Ola and Uber have like a 5-star customer ratings, and the incentive structure is driven by that rating, it has had a very positive influence on the customer experience that the driver offers. We believe a very accurate and comprehensive safety rating will have a very positive influence on how the driver drives. The third thing is these are high-def cameras. So every time an accident happens, and there's about 50 hours of rolling storage in the device. So when an accident happens, the entire video of that accident is available on the device, and it can be fetched remotely from the cloud. And so for post-accident reconstruction, this becomes very important, and also for claims and liability discussions. And lastly, this brings to the topic of my talk today, is really we're understanding how humans are driving. Because we're running the same algorithms with autonomous driving and essentially analyzing how the driver is driving, in turn, we're understanding how humans are driving. And I'll get to that a little bit more in my last slide. So I have some videos over here. We are doing actually active trials in both India and the US. So this video is from the US. This shows a traffic light violation. So what you'll notice over here is we're tracking every single vehicle on the road. This is all being done real time on this device. And the numbers over here is the distance to the vehicle in seconds. And at the bottom curve is basically a map of your accelerometer readings. The yellow here refers that you've crossed a yellow light. The red here refers that you've actually had a red light violation. Just keep an eye on the gray text over here. That's where the automatic caption generation is happening, where the algorithm itself is telling you what's happening. So right here, you should notice there's a yellow light crossing. So the driver did a yellow light crossing, which may become a coaching incident. But more importantly, in this situation, actually the driver ran a traffic light. And right there, it's recognized by our system and fully recorded. In case you're thinking that this system will never work in India, well, there's a surprise. So here's a video of a collision warning system in India, where we're detecting all the vehicles around us, and we're actually doing a collision warning detection, including with two-wheelers. So the red refers to a collision warning, yellow is basically a yellow alert. Now this video won't be shown to the driver. This video is the one that will be uploaded to the cloud. The interface to the driver would be much, much more simpler in the form of sound alerts and LED blinks. So we are actively training in India, and right now we can detect a lot of the objects on the roads in India. I'm actually quite optimistic systems like these will become very, very important and powerful in India as well. In fact, given the dismal state of road safety in India, I think these systems are almost critically needed in India. We can read signs. So again, this is a video from the US where we're reading a stop sign and detecting that the driver actually conveniently decided not to stop at a stop sign. And in case you're wondering, you need very good lane markings and stuff, that's not true. Here's a video of collision detection in India without any lane markings. Oh, sorry, collision warning. So if you think about what's happening, it's the entire visual feed at a high definition 1080p is going into this device. In real time, this device is processing the entire visual feed, and it's actually able to differentiate that car in front of me, how far it is. That car is the one that I'm going to hit if I keep going the way I'm going. And by the way, that bus on the side is really not in my driving lane. And that two-wheeler and the other car that I see, they're really further away than this car. There's a lot of very sophisticated processing going on. And if you think about it, this is pretty much what autonomous driving technology companies also do. So this gets me to my central thesis, the march towards autonomous driving. Autonomous driving, jury's out whether it's take 5 years, 10 years, but it's roughly, it seems like a consensus, it's a 5 to 10 years away, maybe a little bit earlier in the West, a little bit later in India. But as we've seen, technology comes a little bit later in India, but the adoption rates tend to be much, much faster. What autonomous driving systems need? They need data. They need lots and lots of data. Because these systems, there are 3 important things these systems need to do. You need to understand the environment around you, the object detection and recognition. And the algorithms that people use right now, the deep learning algorithms, they're all based on training these systems, right? So you need to drive around hundreds of millions, billions of miles to get that data, and that's what we're trying to do. You need high definition, 3D high definition maps, where you can localize yourself in a scene within centimeters of all the objects around you, all the stationary objects around you. So you know exactly where the lights are. In fact, you know in advance that after this light, another sign is coming, or after this light, there's a right turn, right? For that, you need to drive around, gather all of that data, and it has to be done dynamically because the road conditions keep changing. In fact, changes even more often in India. We are doing that. We are collecting this information, and we are creating a 3D HD map. And the last thing is very, very important. I mean, how do you train these systems to drive? Algorithms in which you assume every vehicle on the road is autonomous driving is bound to fail, because the diffusion of this technology is going to take 20, 30 years. Even the most optimistic predictions are stating that by 2030 in the West, maybe 10% of all vehicles on the road would be autonomous driving. That's the most optimistic prediction. So any system you develop has to coexist with human drivers. And if you think how humans drive, we're constantly negotiating with each other. It's actually even more obvious in India, where rules are just like a guideline. But most of the time, you're constantly negotiating with the other driver. Okay, should I go ahead? Should I let this person go? An autonomous driving system really, really needs to understand how humans drive, because that's how the systems are going to coexist. And in fact, in the near future, I would conjecture autonomous driving systems need to drive as humans, because otherwise you'll confuse the humans if the system behaves very differently, and you'll end up creating accidents with humans. So that's what we're trying to do over here with our system. That's the end of my talk. Thank you. Sorry?
Thank you, Avneesh. I'm going to request Girish from Continental and SA India to present Avneesh a token of our appreciation, please. Thank you, Girish. Thank you, Avneesh.